Welcome back everyone, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another broken BMW. Obviously the last video was on my Subaru, the video before that was on the BMW X5. This is a BMW Z4. This had a leaky valve cover gasket and yeah, I'm halfway through the job. I'm about to start putting it all back together. Yeah, let me spin you around and show you the valve cover with the new gasket on. So here's the valve cover, here's the valve cover gaskets. Obviously I say gaskets because it's effectively a one piece that goes around the outside, and then you have the individual rubber gaskets that go between where your coils and your spark plugs sit. Obviously when you're putting this back on, you need to make sure it is nice and snug in there. Bearing in mind what we're going to do is obviously flip this over and we're going to pop it on top of the cylinder head. So yeah, let's try that now and go from there. There we have it, the valve cover and gasket has been placed on top of the head. What I did before kind of flipping it over and putting it on was I removed all of the smaller retaining bolts that run around the outside of the valve cover. In addition, I removed the three longer kind of centrally placed bolts that bolt the cover down. The reason I moved those out of the actual cover was so when I flipped it over and just placed it down, they weren't going to catch. In addition to that, I moved all of like the wiring harness and bits out the way, so I didn't have anything in my way. I could just literally flip it round, plonk it down. I know that the gasket's still secure in the valve cover, ready for the whole thing to be bolted in. Right, let's go ahead and get all of the outer perimeter bolts popped in. There's quite a few, so I won't video this. Okay, so there we go. I've pushed in all the bolts. Bearing in mind you need a 10mm deep socket for the three central ones, and for all of the outer perimeter bolts you need an E10 with the funky like female Torx, basically an E10 socket. There you go. And yeah, we're going to go and just hand tighten all of these. I believe there might be a tightening sequence, but if you're putting on, you know, if you're doing a cylinder head, you generally start and work your way from the inside out. I think the same principle applies for valve covers. These aren't going to be torqued massively. I'll get the torque spec in a bit, and we will go ahead and we'll just tighten these up, torque these, and kind of work around from the center outwards. And then that should be pulled down nice and evenly. So it turns out there is a tightening sequence, which I'll put up on the screen now. And there's a little bit of a torque sequence, which I found online. It says do all the bolts up to 7 Newton meters. Now my torque wrench only goes to 10 Newton meters, so I've done them all to 10, and then there'll be an angle tighten after that. But yeah, I've gone ahead, torqued them up, and then what I've done is just marked each bolt with a little pink blob, so I can go around and I know that I've done them all, haven't missed one. Shouldn't miss one anyway if you're following the sequence. I wouldn't care too much if you miss a step in the sequence. It's not like you're doing up a cylinder head where it's got to be bang on and to specific torques. At the end of the day, all you're doing is crushing a rubber gasket, and absolute worst case, if you completely messed it up, you'd have a little bit of oil weeping, to which you could probably just nip a bolt up and that would stop it. But I don't know, no guarantee. Anyway, on to the next step. Okay, with the cover down, the next thing to put in are the spark plug tube things. I'm not sure, I don't know what they are, but when I pulled the cover off, and this goes for anyone watching this video and using it as a how-to for getting the cover off, I pulled the cover off with these still in, because other videos describe trying to kind of pick these out using circlip pliers in the holes. No need, no need. You only end up damaging them that way. So pull the whole cover off, leave these in, and then you can tap these out with a hammer. But now what we'll do is we'll tap them back in. Yes, let's do that now. Okay, so with the spark plug tube things in. It's time to put the eccentric shaft motor seal on. So I believe it goes this way. So that'll bolt in there. Okay, that's now bolted down. I did actually, because I'm reusing the seal, use a little bit of silicone sealant. I think it's advised to replace the seal, but this one wasn't too bad, so reuse that. Now it's time for the eccentric shaft motor. Bearing in mind there is a retaining bolt underneath, so when you undo the two either end, you have to remember there's one underneath as well. That's specifically for those who are taking these off. It won't budge without that one being unbolted. So let's get that in. Right, the eccentric shaft motor is on there now. So it's time, I think, to get all the wiring sorted. Just want to note on the fuel injector loom that obviously when you're pulling this off, you can't just pull it, you have to use a pick tool to unhook the clips, because they're basically snug down there, you can't see anything. So yeah, pick tool all of those clips off, and then just make sure you put all the clips back on so we can effectively push that back down. So if you've done your job correctly, you should be able to line the loom up and push down each of the clips, and that should sit snug. Time for the eccentric shaft sensor wiring. Get the coils in. Plug in this, I presume, oil level oil pressure switch. And plug this sensor in here. Now the tricky sensor to get in is this one here, and also to get off, and that goes just down there. There we go. Once you get that satisfying click, you know that's on. Next we'll put the coil pack wiring harness earths on, bearing in mind there's two. Next we'll do the coil pack wiring for all 6, and then the coil pack wiring harness just sits snug in here and is retained by a little plastic clip. And on goes the valve cover breather. I then just connected up the lambda sensors, and then last but not least, the eccentric shaft motor. Cool. Okay, so with the exception of the top cover, we're all connected, all back together. What I'm going to do now is put the ignition on. I'm not going to start the engine, because as soon as I put the ignition on, I would fully expect the eccentric shaft motor to engage. That will turn that sort of corkscrew shaft that it has, and that will rotate the eccentric shaft. And as we know, the eccentric shaft on these, they dictate the lift of the cams. So yeah, ignition on, we'll let the motor do its thing because it effectively self-calibrates, and then we should be in a position to start the engine. There we go. The repair on the Z4 is complete. Just taken it out for a test drive and all looks well. No signs of fluid leaking. So yeah, I'd say the job is well and truly done. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it helps you if you're in the process of doing your valve cover gasket. Just bearing in mind, this is the 2.5 litre straight 6. I think it's the N52 engine. It's the E85 Z4, and it's a 2007 model, so the 2nd edition. A lot of numbers, a lot of additions, but yeah, anyway, hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, see you later.